My father Kauravas was the charioteer of Dhritarashtra. They mostly lived in Hastinapur, the capital of the Kauravas. The city was far away. Sometimes they would come to Champangri in a big chariot. At that time, my enthusiasm and Shona's were different. There was a chariot standing at the door of the leaf hut. Holding my hand, he called out to me loudly, Vasudada, come early. Come on, let's get the oysters on the banks of the Ganges. Upon hearing his call, Appa paid and left, and I ran out of the leaf hut. He and I would then ride in Baba's chariot at breakneck speed to the banks of the Ganges outside the city. The 5 hazel-colored horses fluttered their feathers, fluttering their wings like the wind in their ears. While covering them, Chimukalya Shona flew very fast. With his upper teeth biting his lower lip hard, he tried to cover them and take a detour on the road neatly, and finally got tired and called me for help. He had sharp glasses on his hands. His voice was so catchy at the time that I fell in love with him. Then I took the speed in his hand and reversed Asuda's penalty, and he broke the horse's mane. After saying yes, he was chased away by Asuda's penalty to run away. Seeing that it was to his liking, Shona applauded and encouraged me, and the two of us would come to a halt on the shores of the Ganges. Cutting a half distance, Shona quickly jumped out of the chariot and ran to the shore like a deer. A line of his tiny feet was seen bouncing in the damp sand of the side. But I was the only one in the chariot keep looking at the water. I just wanted to have an indescribable relationship with this water. Immediately another thought came. Well, what will be the relationship of man with water? It is a means of satisfying the thirsty, anxious soul for a while. The speed of the hand slips and falls unknowingly. With my little eyes, I drank as much as I could from the Ganges. At that time I thought how much better it would be if we all had eyes. I woke up from that drowsiness with the questions of Shona. His excitement was palpable as he received mussels of many colors. He uniformly asked me question after question. Grandpa, do these mussels come from water? Yes. He was not satisfied with that much. He even thought back he was not satisfied with that much. He thought back. So all these colors on them are not water? Yes. Then why don't you see that color in the water? I didn't even know the answer at some point. Come on, it's been a long time, I said, trying to clear my mind of those questions. He and I would be back then. As evening approached, flocks of birds such as cuckoos, doves, bhardwajas, and chariot crows could be seen returning to the nest, chirping and chirping. Shona, who had been silent for a while, would wake up again. Outside of Ratanida, Dokavan used to look at their flocks and ask me many questions. I didn't pay any attention to him at that time. At that time, the sun god was entering 2 high mountains on the west side. The horses of his chariot were not tired at all, even though they had been running all day. I feel like those 2 mountains are like 2 gatekeepers on the grand entrance of their palace. When I looked at that beam, I began to feel a kind of excitement. Realizing that the light would disappear from our sight in an instant, a huge wave of despair rushed out of my nostrils. I just stared at that image. Shona showed me a swarm of eagles fluttering in the sky. For a moment, I stared at the roaring birds. It fluttered its wings, made a croaking noise and dropped dead. Eagle, king of all birds. Grandpa, will you go as high as that eagle? He thought of something. Crazy. What bird am I to go high? No. Then how did you stop the horses running so fast? Okay, Dad, I'll go as high as that eagle. So high that you'll never see it. So what happened? He was satisfied with that answer. An expression of respect for me began to shine brightly in his eyes. I looked back at the western horizon and finally I asked him a question. Shona, did you see that sunshine? How do you feel when you look at that image? I thought he would stare at the image for a moment, and then he would say it in a slightly different way. But he looked at the sun god. And his twinkling eyes suddenly disappeared, and after a while he looked me in the ear and said, "It looks like a sack that encloses with a drawstring." I put my hand over my ear. Two fleshy coils in hand. My say she was born. Shona started complaining. Look, mother loves you more. That is why she has given you so many earrings. Where are my earrings? His remarks made me think for a moment. Once again in the west I stared at the bright image that was disappearing from my eyes. Emotions swirl in my little mind. With one hand I covered the speed of the horses, and with the other hand I said goodbye to the splendor that was disappearing from sight. There was a different kind of excitement in my mind. Feeling we have run out of gas emotionally. Impulsively, I hit the horses back with a heavy blow of a soda in my hand. With their hooves in the bushes, blowing dust on the road, they started sneezing and running with wind speed. I was not aware of any of the Shona sitting nearby, the running horses, the chasing Ashoka, the Tal, the Kinshuk, the Madhuk, the Patal, the Tamal, the Kadamba, the Shawl, the Santan, the tall, deciduous tree. The only way to see the front is to crawl back and forth. A thought flashed through my mind. Along this trail, I am moving from the realm of light to the frightening sea of darkness somewhere. 12 hours of the night now seemed to go into such loneliness. As soon as she came to the leaf hut, Shona showed her mother the earnings of her colorful muscles with great enthusiasm. Praising him, my mother asked me, Vasu, what did you bring? At first I was confused. I did not know what to say. Because I did not bring anything. That's the big deal, Mom. Oh, he'd be sitting there all night collecting mussels. Yes, yes. Did you bring me? I brought him back. Otherwise he would have been sitting there till morning, waiting for that sunshine. Sean bowed her head. She looked at me intently. I did not understand why she should look at my face so closely. I came straight out of there.